I'm not a superstitious person. I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that, and I've never experienced anything like this before. But after what just happened, I'm covered in goosebumps and I don't have an explanation. Terrifying. My boyfriend texted me that he was going to bed from his office. I got up a couple minutes after he sent that and headed to the bedroom. When I opened the door, I saw him lying down in bed, facing away from me towards the wall. I swear I saw him and his hair. I asked if he was okay, and I heard him mumble a response. Didn't completely hear, but it was his voice. I looked away for a split second to put down my water bottle on my nightstand, and he was suddenly gone. I panicked. I thought maybe he was playing a prank on me and was hiding behind the bed. I told him it wasn't funny. I asked where he went. It's a narrow bedroom, so he couldn't have walked past me. I go to look behind the bed, absolutely losing my shit, and he isn't there. I keep asking where he went, hoping that he will come out and it's all a joke. He wasn't hiding anywhere behind or under the bed. I'm still freaked out because I was sure I also heard his voice and saw him. At this point, I go back into the hallway completely panicked, and a few seconds later, my boyfriend walks out of his office. He was really confused to see me so panicked and asked what was wrong. I didn't even know how to start to explain. He was never in the bedroom. We are both freaked out. Any explanations are very welcome. I hate this. We moved into our home last year, a small, fairly new property with an odd layout that's out of character with the other houses around, most being quite old. Family and friends are not keen on the house, but we like it. There's a certain quirky charm. We have a long, thin, overgrown garden at the back. To the right, our neighbor's garden, tidy and a lot wider. To our left, we back onto the end of 3 other gardens, these houses being on the next street, but backing onto ours. A few weeks ago, after a storm, while repairing the damage to a couple of fence panels, I realized something. Now there seemed to be only 2 houses to the left. It was a strange feeling. This subreddit was one of the first things that came to mind. Maybe we miscounted. The thing is, we remembered details about the no longer their house. The houses are, or were, attached. One end, house belonging to an old couple keen on gardening. The other end, to a solitary older man with an aggressive dog. The middle house, the one that has gone, belonged to a family with teenage children. We remember noticing their old pirate-themed playhouse, complete with flag, when we first came to view our home to be. Sometimes we would see the older son playing his computer from our upstairs window. Now we cannot even see his window, just a large tree obscuring the view growing in the corner of the gardening couple's property. The missing house had a trampoline in the garden. Before, we could see from standing in the middle of ours and a small, yappy dog often running about. All gone. The 2 houses left are still attached. Each has several large trees growing in their gardens. We don't remember there being quite so many. The solitary older man's garden now seems too wide compared to his neighbor's. It doesn't affect us. It's just slightly unsettling and kind of cool in an odd way. About 6 to 8 years ago, my friend Giovanni and I left my house to go get some late-night McDonald's. You know, just as young fellas do at 2 a.m. after a night of partying, etc. We got into his white Mustang, left the neighborhood, and began driving on one of the main roads towards McDonald's, which was about 2 miles away. As we cross an intersection just about half a mile away from McDonald's, we get slammed by another car and thrown, and we proceed to roll. All I remember from the impact is that the car was speeding very fast. The impact was brutal. Glass shards flew everywhere, and the sound of plastic and metal scraping the asphalt. We died upon impact. We were gone. Then it all just went black. I saw that the car was annihilated looking at it from above. The scene was distressing. Then, just as soon as the scene played out of our deaths, it abruptly ended, and we automatically went back, and we were both standing at the front door, about to leave to McDonald's. I look over at Gio, and Gio is tearing up and shaking with his hand on the doorknob. I say, "Bro, what the fuck was that? If we leave and go right now, we're gonna die in a car crash." All he replied with was something along the lines of, "I know." Gio was shaking terribly, and I felt sick to my stomach. We had both just lived out our deaths. We both stepped away from the door and walked back into the family room and sat on the couch and didn't say a word to each other and just stared off into the distance. I had lived my own death, and so did he. We both knew it, and we both had no idea how to explain it. The best way I can explain it is it felt like a dream, where it's one of those almost too real of a dreams. We assuredly left the house and almost made it to McDonald's, but we got hit at an intersection, then flashed back almost immediately to my house. If y'all have seen the episode of Rick and Morty where Morty gets a do-over control, it was exactly like that. It's like we experienced and lived our deaths, then simply had a do-over and respawned to 10 to 15 minutes earlier. I have about a 45-minute commute, and I take the same route nearly every single day to work. Exceptions being if my GPS alerts me of a crash or other traffic obstruction. Nonetheless, I'm very familiar with the route I drive. This morning, about 25 minutes into my drive, I noticed a car pulled over in the left-hand shoulder of the highway, with a police car behind them. I distinctly remember seeing the blue and red lights flashing and thinking to myself, wow, glad my morning didn't start that way. As I approached closer to the car, I checked my speed and moved from the far left fast lane to the center lane. I didn't want to take any chances. As I switched lanes, a utility van happened to pass by me, taking my original spot in the fast lane. This is where the glitch happened. The van was larger than my small SUV, but not so large that I couldn't see traffic ahead of or around it. I kept an eye out for the police officer and pulled over car on the shoulder, simply out of natural curiosity. Suddenly, it was as if the scene completely disappeared. There was no car pulled over, no flashing lights. Everything was completely gone, just an empty shoulder lane. It was so strange. As I approached the scene, I remember internally thinking, wouldn't it be weird to drive by and this cop car no longer be there? And then it happened. It was as if my subconscious was aware it would occur. I'm typically a skeptic about these things, almost always trying to find logic in an odd situation. I even checked my rearview mirror for the lights to see if I was just having a temporary lapse in judgment, or if the scene just happened to be out of my line of vision. Nope, completely gone. Needless to say, the rest of my day felt a little funky. Okay, so I've posted before here. My life has been nothing but glitches growing up, but due to rules, I don't have a lot to post, as I was a kid for the more vivid experiences. However, this happened when I was 29 in November 2021. I drove to the grocery store the next town over after work. I never called my brother to let him know where I was off to after work. Usually I call, but I wanted to surprise him with takeout food. My car speakers were blaring my favorite K-pop list. I wasn't distracted by anything on this seemingly calm drive home. While turning a corner on the last stretch towards my home community, my body felt like it was nothing but static. Everything took on a haze I can't articulate. It felt like a fluffy, itchy sweater, but all over. That's the best I got. I didn't get time to process much, as this whole experience was less than a minute, yet has been haunting me this past year, wondering if I should post it. Anyways, I see the dark mass of a huge black bear in the path of my car. I barely had a half second to register what was happening. I felt myself being pulled forward as the bear collided with my car hood. But I stopped because of my seatbelt. I could hear crunching of metal and bones. My car was tumbling down the steep ravine out of the corner I was turning on. I remember the stupid freaking takeout bag flying out the now broken back window. I smelled gasoline, copper, and other fluid smells you'd expect of a car shop. I felt like I was on fire, and like every bone I have was cracking all at once. The pain was momentary, but immeasurable. Things just went black then, like nothing happened. I was back in the moment before turning the corner I hit the bear on. In sheer confusion, panic, and denial, I slowed down and began to pull over because I wasn't expecting a do-over of that moment. I tried to pretend I was just panicking over nothing until a big black bear came up from the blind spot of the steep ravine of that turn. When my car stopped, I was 5 feet away from the very same bear I hit only moments prior. But it never actually happened. When I got home, I couldn't help but bawl into my brother's arms, then hold my dog and cat tight. It doesn't feel right here, though. Before I hit the bear, I was treated nicely at work. I had friends at work. I was never misgendered or dead named after coming out to my coworkers as non-binary in 2020. My dog doesn't want to be near me, despite my relief to see him. He still side-eyes me and is strangely standoffish with me a year later. Additionally, after that weird event, everyone at work is petty, backhanded, and I have no friends there no matter how I try to establish prior connections I had. Apparently, I was never friends with anyone outside of work here. It's like the life I had is just backwards now, and I want to be terrified. But I don't feel anything these days since that incident in November 2021. I still don't know what to think, but it's probably because I still don't believe I'm here a year later. P.S. This felt horrible to write. I'm glad it's off my chest finally.